Hello, 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 Cryptonauts! Welcome back to another episode of Cryptocurrency Chat. I am your host, Blockchain John, here with my co-host Jake Jabarelli, and we are here to bring you an exclusive interview with Luis from BrikBC. All right, Luis. Before we get started, I got to ask you the icebreaker question. Are you ready for it, buddy?
Yep. Shoot away.
All right. The icebreaker question is: who has had a positive impact on your life?
Well, in terms of obviously, my parents always had it that they had a major impact on my life. But in terms of post parents, my life partner Melinda Alexo, who's actually also my co-founder in BrikBC projects, so she's had a massive impact on my life. We met very young, and today we're very proud to have two kids who are 25 and 22. So Melinda's one that's had a major impact in my life, and we can continue to do so every day.
That's great, man. That's great. All right, Cryptonauts. Yes, finally here. We finally got Luis on the podcast. That's great, man. All right, Luis. So before we get started with what's going on with BrikBC and what you guys are doing there, I would
Mhm.
like to ask you to introduce yourself to the new listeners and followers that are watching and listening to the podcast. I know you emailed us a lot of details, which is great because we've never actually had someone email a lot of information to us about you and the company. So it's great. But go ahead and just
Mhm.
introduce yourself and
Mhm.
yeah, there you go. Go ahead.
Yeah. Look, I'm Lewis Miguel Alexo. I'm the managing director and co-founder of BrikBC Projects. We're tokenizing real estate property here in Australia. We're very proud that we were the first ones to tokenize a real estate on the RAVENCOIN blockchain, and we every day we hold that in very high pride in terms of given the respect we have for the RavenCoin community. But yeah, look, in terms of my co-founder, as I mentioned earlier, is my life partner, Melinda Alexo, and basically we thought that we'd find a way to provide real estate to the everyday person when we sort of went down the rabbit hole 3 years ago, and here we are providing that solution to for anybody to be able to get into real estate. Doesn't matter what part of the world you're at. Doesn't matter whether you've got $10 to your name or you've got $10 billion to your name. But it's very much aimed at the everyday person. Obviously, if you're a billionaire, you're not the everyday person. But our model is very much aimed at the everyday person to be able to access real estate. So so a bit about me and what I'm doing. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, cool. Let's see. Luis, tell me your history before you
Mm-hmm.
got into BrickBC, before you got into crypto,
Yep.
before you got into Ravencoin. What did you do before all of this? This is all, you know, I would say more or less new. It's a new experience for everybody, but there was a life before crypto. What did you do prior to that?
Yeah, look, in terms of, I'm an Australian CPA accountant, so that's actually been my training. Um, family was always involved in real estate and the construction game, but again, that's your parents advise you to take a easier route in life to be able to then to that's not as hard on your body. And my father is a former working carpenter, and obviously that's very hard work. And so basically, I went down the track of actually being a CPA accountant and doing all obviously going to uni and doing the qualifications. So yeah, but so before all this, so basically last 28 years, I've been a strategic accountant working with family businesses and very much mentoring and providing the pathway for to then be better successful businesses in terms of, and typically the businesses have been in the real estate in terms of property investment, with builder developers or builders or trades. But there's always a link, directly or indirectly, back to real estate, property, and building construction. So I've always been around that sort of space. I mean, to this day, I still advise some of these businesses that are involved in real estate. So for still very much on the journey with them. So for me, that's been my background, and I mean before I became qualified accountant, I was doing real estate probably back then in terms of
Wow.
renovating it. So my wife and I, Melinda, that's something we were always, even before I became a qualified accountant, doing before then, and we continue to do so, and that sort of brought about the frustration in terms, and we start talking about not everybody's able to access real estate. And 3 years ago, having to basically have a look what blockchain could do to solve this problem in terms of, because it's become harder and harder for people to, the everyday person to try and get into real estate or build an investment portfolio in real estate. So again, basically thinking outside the square, and giving the people's feedback and friends, family, and contacts in general that banks continue to be hard to lend money. Obviously, ever increasing in terms of real estate values. So it's becoming harder and harder. And 3 years ago, went down that rabbit hole to learn everything about blockchain, and work out if blockchain could provide the solution, and going through that whole in terms of like Western countries, as we know, I mean, we've got these set of problems in terms of clunky banking systems and obviously increase in property values. But on the other side, in terms of where you've got developing countries, they've got different set of problems. You've got people that never banked before. You've got people in terms of with the corruption that goes in some of these developing countries. So again, different set of problems, but again, they just can't get access to real estate to make their way in life. And I guess that's what we're trying to sort of come up with a model that very much anybody can come into real estate. Doesn't matter what part of the world and whatever your your wealth situation is that anybody should be able to access real estate, the real estate benefits that brings to everybody. So that's sort of the history behind it in terms of from working with businesses and mentoring businesses to actually now helping people as well in terms of real estate.
Yeah,
In
you
terms
definitely have a lot of
that,
experience in real estate. Yeah, that's amazing. I didn't know you had
mm.
basically you were born you were born into real estate. That's great,
I
man.
was.
Yeah.
I mean, as I said, with my father being in construction, and so all the major projects here in Brisbane, I was going to those sites in terms of whether it be stadiums, whether it be first high rise in Brisbane. Again, that's stuff that I was always around as a kid. So it all became very natural in terms of those fundamentals and things coming, second nature, things how you see cycles and all that sort of stuff that goes on. So again, that's all the stuff that you're exposed to as a kid growing up and thereafter.
Cerberus here in the chat says you're a very experienced guy. The Hotterglass
Thanks.
says that you're very legit. You know, a lot of people love you. You're a very charismatic person, and you've been dedicated to pushing out BrikBC and just the RAVENCOIN community. You've been a real big support. It's amazing to see you do that, and you don't. There's nothing stopping you. That's what's amazing is that you're just like a bullet train. You just keep going and going and going, like nonstop, man. There's been times where I jumped into your space and there's only one person there, but you're dedicated and you still push out episodes there's a whole audience there. It's amazing. It's amazing how you do that.
Yeah, look, it's for me, John, and thank you for those nice words. For me, it's like you got to be consistent. So regardless whether you get nobody, you get 100 people. For me, it's always about being consistent. That's come from in terms of groups I catch up every month. It's consistency in terms of catching up at the same time, same place every week, regardless whether you're the only one turning up or whether you get 100 people. It doesn't matter because obviously with the stuff with this always recorded anyway, so people can catch up in their own time. So I think consistency is a key. Yeah.
All right. So what was the first crypto project you got into? Like, what was the first thing that got you into crypto? What did you hear? Was it Ethereum? Was it Dogecoin? Was it Bitcoin? What was the first thing that really got you interested in looking into crypto?
Yeah, look, probably, I mean, 2011, I was exposed to Bitcoin. A friend of mine,
Okay, go ahead.
as in terms of him telling me he was actually trading Bitcoin. He was an IT guy here in Brisbane. He had a global business. And I mean, he was involved as the sort of the merge facility between the gamers and the gaming houses globally. And he was obviously very high knowledge in terms of tech. And he was actually explaining to me that he was actually trading Bitcoin back then. And I think back then it was something like $10, I think it was Bitcoin in 2011. I can't remember. Don't quote me on it, but it was something like that. And he saw Bitcoin as being sort of the next best thing in terms of decentralization and having people power and so forth. But he went down the rabbit hole trying to explain to me the very nitty-gritties of it all. And again, it was just it was very technical for me. So I said, look, Mark. I said, I love your passion about about Bitcoin, but for things I haven't got your technical knowledge in terms of IT.
Yeah.
And the thing that scares me, like you lose your keys back then, you've lost everything. So for me, that was very scary. And then basically, yeah, so I sort of parked that to the side, and then 3 years ago, I sort of come across a few things and went down the rabbit hole. And the first thing I actually bought was actually Bitcoin. So Bitcoin was actually the first. I think I bought. I think it was like $1,000 worth of Bitcoin on the actual Bitcoin app. I got
What
it
made you
down because
what made you trigger?
yeah,
I mean, yeah, 3 years ago, it
yeah,
was already mainstream. People already knew
mm,
about it. Is that
yeah.
why it was easy for you just to get into it real quick?
Yeah, only because it was like now you had apps that you can actually use to before you had to actually obviously in terms of the way it light on your laptop, you actually had to be really sort of you had to be sort of deep understanding in terms of IT back then. Whereas
Yeah,
now you can actually have an app and you can just buy through an app Bitcoin.
I remember
Um,
those
that was
days.
it. Yeah.
I remember those
So for
days.
me, it's like, okay, if I'm gonna, if I'm obviously going down the rabbit hole, you need to be experiencing things. You need to be doing things. You can't just read about it. You got to be doing it. So I guess that Bitcoin was the first crypto that I bought, and then from then on, I actually opened up an account with the coin spot here in Australia, and I started buying, started trading some Ethereums, some quite a few different types of projects. I started learning about different projects and what they did, in with Link and a few other projects. And again, I want to understand in terms of that whole centralization, this centralization across the different projects out there, whether the blockchains, whether they're in terms of with Link, in terms of what it does, the purpose. So for me, it was about yeah. Look, I was going on because I was putting on a few kilometers a week, and I was doing sort of 100 kilometers on the weekend on the bike at the time, and I'd have my podcasts in, and for me, it was about learning everything about it and from different angles, because I think you need to understand all different types of projects, and so through that stage, I got to know very much a lot of different projects across different areas and on blockchain, and it convinced me that. That was actually the future in terms of how we can actually provide tokenized real estate, and people can just buy a fraction of a property. They don't have to buy a whole property. They can buy a fraction and be exposed to the benefits of property. But so Bitcoin, long story to in terms of what it was. Bitcoin was actually my first project, John.
That's great. That's
Yeah,
amazing. Here now? Here's a serious question.
yeah.
Have you actually read the Satoshi white paper?
I've read parts of it. I mean, there's obviously a lot of projects, and for me, it was trying to get as much knowledge in a very fast way as I could. And sometimes there's cheat notes, right?
Hmm.
In terms of different projects, you just want to get the sort of the key points around it, and I guess it's trying to read efficiently in terms of picking up different points from all different projects, the key points, and I guess that's what I did, trying to sort of cram as much as and we've all been through that, no doubt. In terms of remember back my uni days, there's always a stage you're trying to cram, and obviously you learn very fast, efficient ways to read, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
But obviously then we got obviously exposed to RAVENCOIN, given obviously what happened with our journey with
Yeah, yeah.
Rick
So
Wala.
just to
Yeah,
backtrack,
yeah,
you and your wife
yeah.
came up with BrikBC, which
Mm.
is the company, yeah?
Correct. So BrikBC Projects is an Australian company, registered company, and that's obviously our center point when it comes to in terms of the marketing, in terms of the platform is very much the center point of our business. Yeah.
Pulling up the website now. I'm gonna scroll through it and show the
Mm-hmm.
viewers and
Mm-hmm.
just audibly say what I'm looking at here for the listeners.
Mm-hmm.
So if you go to brickbcprojects.com, you'll go directly to the website, and there's a lot of images here of the city. What city is this? Brick?
Brisbane. Brisbane. Yeah.
Brisbane. Okay, here we go. Scrolling on down, you have home, residential properties, the About Us tab, the FAQ, the media, Brick BC, and Spotlight, and the Contact Us. And then down below it says Brick BC Projects, quote, provides access to anyone from anywhere in the world to own at least one brick in real estate property. And these images that he has here are the actual properties that he has available on Brick BC. If you guys want to invest into this, this is what you're getting right there. That's amazing stuff. These houses
That
are beautiful.
that Brisbane property there, actually last Monday, actually I must get Tron to actually send me the photo, because we actually stopped by. Tron Black was actually here with his wife last
Yeah.
Monday, and he
How was
actually
that?
took. I actually had some photos. We actually took photos there with him in front, him and Monica in
Do you
front
have
of
them?
the Brisbane property. Yeah,
Do you have them
but I must
available?
get it off. I must ask him to send it to me because it was actually done on his phone. But I must actually ask him to send it to me. Yeah.
Okay, so you don't have any photos. Are you able to share them?
In terms of with Tron in front of it.
Uh, yeah, I probably go to your Twitter, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, on Twitter, I've actually got pictures there with Tron when Tron was out here on Monday
Okay,
with
so
the
I'm on
story
your
bridge
Twitter.
behind us. Yeah,
I'm on your Twitter
yeah,
page at BrikBC, and it's BrikBC.
correct.
All right, so here we go. Scrolling on down. This was with Tron. Let's see.
So last Monday, we actually got the pictures there with the story bridge in the background of us. We were actually in the city, looking back towards the story bridge. So if you go down that last Monday, there it is.
I'm able to pull it up here.
But I must grab the ones that we took. I took of Tron and Monica in front of the Brisbane property. That's
There it is.
but that yeah one. So that way we're in the city there, and with the story bridge, the iconic story bridge in Brisbane in the background there. Yeah,
Why is that an iconic bridge?
it's very because we call the River City, and that bridge there is very much at the centerpiece because basically got the city where we are here. We're actually standing on the city side. And basically, you've got this under the story bridge still on this side here, around under the bridge. We've got Howell Smith Wharfs, where we actually is quite a sort of mixed entertainment precinct with restaurants and hotels and so forth. So everything sort of centers around this area here for now, because we've got the new casino being built on the other side of the city.
Am I
And
looking at a yacht? Is that a
also,
yacht?
it's actually one of our city cats, which is just the boats that take us, moves people around. So it's our river transport.
Well,
So it's what
that's
we call city cat.
beautiful.
Yeah,
That's real
We'd
beautiful.
probably call it a ferry in the U.S., but yeah.
Yeah,
correct. That's
well,
it. Correct. Yeah. So I think
that
I did feel sorry for Tron and Monica because they came out of Salt Lake City, where it was -5, and they landed here, which I think it was around 30 degrees on Monday Celsius. So quite extreme temperatures for them.
and now I'm back to the website,
Yeah.
brickbcprojects.com, scrolling on down. Australian real estate property available to all on the blockchain, which is very important. We're going to talk about that later. BrikBC digital property token provides entry access to real estate properties to all people from all walks of life. BrikBC Projects provides the platform to buy the unique initial property tokens linked to each real estate property token series by focusing on presenting high quality luxury real estate properties in blue chip locations in Australia. Each Brick token series represents one real estate property project. Anyone around the globe can own at least one brick. That's beautifully said. That must have been artificial intelligence that wrote that.
That was pre AI. But now obviously different variations with AI, but that was pre AI.
All right, so now that we're on this website, let's talk about BrikBC. What led you up to create BrikBC? Obviously, you've been a CPA accountant for many years, and you're into the real estate business. You said you got into crypto, and you kind of just meshed everything together. And from my understanding, it's actually working. It's actually succeeding. There's value in this. People love this idea. Explain to me how you and your wife ultimately determined that this is the way you guys should go.
Yeah, look, in terms, as I said, it came around with the frustrations of the clunkiness of the banking system in terms of people's ability to borrow money, and obviously the ever increasing property values. Like if you have a look in terms of here in Brisbane, for example, over the last some places over the last 12 months, they've gone up 36% in value. Some of these properties. So again, it's becoming harder and harder for the everyday person to build an investment portfolio in property. You start talking about young people coming through, 20, 22, 25-year-old, even to even get started in real estate, it's even harder. So what we, as I said before, going down that rabbit hole in terms of whether blockchain could provide a solution, then obviously in doing that, I had to come up with a model that basically met all the compliance. So firstly, it was making sure that, again, I was fortunate given my skill base and working with structures over the years in terms of legal structures and companies and trusts and so forth. Obviously, you know, a lot of that stuff is very second nature. So for me, it was about to basically because when it comes to real estate property, compared to other things, it actually crosses a lot of legislations in terms of capital gains tax. So with our tax system here, our federal tax system, it touches in terms of capital gains tax. So then you start talking about state taxes in terms of when you buy a property. You've got stamp duties, so you've got days issues, you've got land tax, it's also state tax. You've got foreign ownership rules. You've got and obviously then you've got the ASIC rules, which is our equivalent to the SEC, the American SEC. I'm not too sure what the equivalent in other countries is, but so again, it was about putting all those pieces of legislation and me going through the model. It took me around 3 months to actually finalize the model, because basically you got to basically tick the boxes, making sure you're compliant with all things. And once we'd done that, and they say, well, we meet all the stuff when it comes from an Australian perspective. Now we need to talk to somebody who's actually the global leader in actually creating platforms on the blockchain and meeting the blockchain rules. And obviously this is where we reached out to Klaus Scanny, the CEO of DigiShares, and sat down with him over Zoom over many sessions. And because obviously I couldn't compromise on our model from our legislation perspective, and because it met all the things we needed here. So we went through various variations, how it might fit in terms of blockchain. So, and again, that was a challenging piece, because obviously I couldn't compromise on our model, but it obviously had to sort of meet within the blockchain rules. And so again, we got to a final solution to because back then this is sort of early 2021. And back then, obviously, the DigiShares only offered Ethereum blockchain to tokenize real estate on, because what DigiShares does, obviously as advisors, but also they create the actual platform, the IT platform. Because I'm not an IT person, I don't write code. Obviously, we heavily rely on finding that global leader that's in that space, like DigiShares is. So they create the platform and maintain the platform. The IT platform, which is our property tokens platform. So basically, once we established that we could do it, we basically focused on the Ethereum blockchain, because that was the only thing we could tokenize on. It was November 2021, John and Jake, and we all know what was happening with NFTs, right? NFTs late 2021 were going crazy. Obviously, with OpenSea, it was going crazy, a lot of the NFT projects. And that was causing huge gas fees on the Ethereum blockchain. We were trying to tokenize, we started sort of late October trying to tokenize the Koala property token series, the Brisbane property. And it kept saying it's $28,000 US to tokenize the series. Mind you, like when we started that earlier on the year, it was going to be sort of $800 US to tokenize the series using the ERC 1404 token on the Ethereum blockchain. And it just kept coming as 28,000. And then basically before Christmas, the day before Christmas, I get from the team, the DigiShares team, I get a message. You need to get on there now, because the gas fees are just like tanked. It's dropped. There's not much activity before Christmas. It's just that hour, and ended up costing us, I think in the end it was like $900 to tokenize the series, as opposed to 28,000. And we are talking about US dollars, so obviously a lot more when you start talking about Australian dollars. But yeah, so basically we did. But what that done for us, it was a realization that Ethereum blockchain wasn't going to be a solution, wasn't going to be a sustainable solution, not just for us to tokenize series on it, but also it would be a massive friction for our token holders when they're buying and selling our tokens, the friction. Because, I mean, you guys probably experienced the same in terms of when you were trying to get money out of a decentralized platform like your Trust wallet. It was costing you to transfer, it was costing you $100, $200 in gas fees for something that might have only been $50 you're trying to get across to another platform. And so again, that was sort of a realization to us that Ethereum blockchain wasn't going to be a solution. And people spoke about layer 2s with Polygon, but no, for me, it was always about, if we're going to do this, it's got to be on layer 1. And people talked about layer 2s and obviously lower gas fees with Polygon. But for me, I don't know. I want things simple. I'm a very simple person, and I like to keep things simple. And we were trying to bring mainstream in. It's already hard enough as it is, so it's critical to make sure that it makes things easy for people. And introducing a layer two solution to address the gas fees is just another layer of complication that people don't need, and increases the friction and so forth. So basically, from there, we started at that time. DigiShares they were basically about to introduce RAVENCOIN as another chain so people could tokenize on. So then we basically went down and researched and what was RAVENCOIN. Had obviously community involvement. Obviously, I came across you, Jonathan. I came across Tron. I came across LSJ, quite a few people in the RAVENCOIN community, and obviously picking their brain. And Tron was a big resource. I was able to ask them questions and in terms of what is the future for the RAVENCOIN blockchain. But as we all know, RAVENCOIN is very much totally at the opposite of Ethereum in terms of being decentralized blockchain. So that was also a big thing in terms of that decentralization of a blockchain where no one's got control of it. It's very much up to the community to drive it. So that was a really appealing as well as the gas fees as the number one first while we actually explored other chains. But then you sort of start sort of going through some of the fundamentals of the chain and the community and all those things. So for us, basically, we knew that we needed to move and to switch to the RAVENCOIN blockchain. So basically that's what we set out pretty much in that January last year. Although we obviously had to go with the Ethereum, with the Brisbane property, the Koala property, but we knew the second property, the Gold Coast property, was going to be on the RAVENCOIN blockchain, and we launched the Gold Coast property last November, and obviously all properties in future will be on the RAVENCOIN blockchain. Yeah.
So you said you met Klaus, right?
Yes.
Was it Klaus? Klaus from
Klaus.
DigiShares.
Correct.
How did you get connected with him?
Look,
out of all the people in the world, you got connected with an amazing person, and I met him last year. We met him, Jake and I. We met him last year over at the Blockchain Expo here in Santa Clara.
Yeah, look, in terms of going down that rabbit hole and researching who's who in the zoo, and having a look who were the global leaders out there in terms of as service providers and advisors in terms of blockchain. We went through a few to have a look in terms of who was there. We found around 3, but in the end, look, DigiShares and obviously how engaging Klaus was and very helpful, and made the time to actually understand, because obviously they had no clients in Australia. We were the obvious first clients in Australia. They had clients in South Africa, obviously America, and a couple in Europe. So we were very much sort of one of the early clients that we sort of came on board with them. But so basically through that building that relationship with Klaus earlier on, it told us a lot about him and his organisation and what they're about in terms of helping and trying to obviously succeed. And I guess that sort of came from that in terms of and today, a lot of my colleagues around the world who are planning tokenizing real estate, and I always say you need to have a chat with Klaus. There's your starting point. You've worked out what you got to do, locally, but your next conversation should be with Klaus and how can they help you and what you can do. So for me, look, it's about researching who's who in the zoo and finding the best of breed, and then having that chat like I did with Klaus.
The crypto space is a small world, man. So when we met him out there, I was like, "Hey, I know you guys. Yeah, BrikBC. Luis is always talking about you guys. It's amazing to see you guys out here." And I said, "Hey, you know what? Because this was right before the first RavenCoin Global Awards. I said, "Hey,
Yeah.
I think you guys are actually been nominated on the RavenCoin Global Awards. So it'd be nice to see you guys out there in Braveland. But you guys are competing against a few other, One of them is BrikBC, so let's see who comes out to win. Klaus chuckles. He goes, "Well, we actually did set him up, so we should be the winners." I was like, "Okay, well, it all determined. It's all based off of the community. We'll see what the community says." And to be
Right.
honest, I was keeping track of that, and he was winning. DigiShares was winning by a long shot. But
Yes.
then the tables turned as time went on. The tables turned. I was like,
Yeah.
"Wow, this is amazing."
Yeah.
How the community made these votes. Yeah, it's great,
Yeah.
man.
They're fantastic. They just share like with Klaus. obviously they're expanding. They're obviously got a lot of new clients coming on board. A lot of institutional clients, but again they're not just talking; they're actually walking. They're actually doing a crowdfunding themselves on the blockchain. So they're actually in the middle of that right now. Actually, last week I think it opened up last week. So they're also walking it themselves. Yeah.
Nice.
In terms of their company, obviously they don't tokenize real estate themselves. Obviously, they provide a platform, create the platform, maintain the platform for their clients like us. But obviously, from an actual company tokenizing a business, they're tokenizing their business and through a crowdfunding model on the blockchain. Yeah, yeah.
Nice.
Mm.
All right, so you have you got two tokens here. You got the Brick Wallows and the Brick Dolphins. Let's
Mm.
talk about that because I believe that's
Yep.
that's primarily what you're working on. Yeah.
Yeah, correct. So they're live. They're anybody can buy into those too.
Okay.
Um,
And how does the purchasing work? You know, how do I do that?
yeah.
Do I have to be like a certified real estate investor to purchase this stuff, or what's the
No,
deal?
no, again, anybody can buy it. So the only thing is you got to do is obviously you got to come on our platform. So as you can see on the website there, you click the button there to go onto the platform. So BrikBC Property Tokens platform that takes you into our property tokens platform. So if you haven't got an account, you can create an account for yourself. And then basically the stages after that, you got to provide the KYC and AML. So in terms of your ID, which has been challenging because obviously a lot of people don't like the providing their ID information. So that's been a bit of a challenge for us. So obviously, again, it's one of those things that as in terms of tokenizing real estate, we have to do. We as part of the
Yeah.
compliance,
So
people have to be
KYC
KYC.
AML.
Correct, yeah. So they've got to provide, obviously, in terms of proof, in terms of who they are, in terms of driver's license, and also a proof of address. If your passport's got both, then obviously you only need your passport that shows who you are and what your address is. So you just need two pieces that basically can prove those two things. So once they're on there, people obviously go through and fill the information in terms of the next of kin. Obviously, if something happens, we always know who the next of kin is. So once they've been basically verified with those things in there, basically they're alive. They can go in there into the platform and basically buy. So the dolphin and the koala, they're both $80 per token each. So
Mhm.
people use either USDC. So on the koala one, they'll use USDC as a swap between. So they'll deposit the USDC, $80 of USDC, and then basically we issue them with a koala property token. Dolphin, we actually at the moment we are accepting RAVENCOIN because obviously the Dolphins was tokenized on the RAVENCOIN blockchain. So they can use USDC. They can deposit $80 there on the platform, and obviously we'll give them a Dolphin token. But also we do accept RAVENCOIN, so people just don't have to work out. They'll have to work out how many RAVENCOINs they got that obviously converts to $80.
So
Okay,
who are you?
we're always trying to improve. Like we're reviewing some merchants out there to be able to add so people can actually use. Again, provide more options in terms of how people actually pay for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So,
That's what I was about to
mm,
ask you. What are you
yeah.
using as escrow? Which exchange or how are you doing that on the back end? Is it just
Yeah. So
going directly
base.
to your? Go ahead.
Yeah. So people basically, with USDC, they basically deposit that into our USDC account. So once they go through, they deposit on the platform. So it'll have the address, what the address is to deposit the USDC into. So once that basically comes through, then they basically approve and then basically issue the token to the token buyer. With the RAVENCOIN, very similar to RAVENCOIN. Again, depositing, working out how much RAVENCOIN it is when the person goes in there and buys it, deposit that RAVENCOIN into our wallet. Once it's done, then basically that Dolphin is
Okay.
issued to them as well. So
So
so again, keeping it that's at the moment the way. But as again, we're just trying to introduce a few more merch places where people can just go to a merch and does that automatically for them.
yeah, I
It's just
see.
providing a few different options. Yeah.
I saw that you have Ravenist down here. What's that? Are you selling properties tokens on Ravenist?
On Ravens, actually, that was part of the marketing. So when we actually done the marketing, there was a certain time frame in terms of that people could actually buy through Ravenous and buy that coin there. But it was a limited time only as part of the marketing and
Oh,
before the
okay.
launch. They basically once if they bought that, we actually then obviously they had to go on that platform, and we issued them with the koala property token. So there was a limited time only as part of our marketing campaign through
One thing,
Ravenous.
one thing that's confusing me that
Yep.
I don't understand what's going on here. It's the counters. You got two counters here, one for the koalas, one for the
Yep.
dolphins.
Yep.
Explain that to me. It says
Yep.
visual counter one dolphin equals 10,000 brick dolphin tokens. What's going on there?
Yep. So to give people an update in terms of where we're at, so the koala property, so that's there's 33,000 koala tokens available to buy. So at this stage, there's 1,243 sold so far of the koala token. So again, we just got there. Obviously, it's still under one, still under 1,000. So we just say, okay, well, each koala head represents 1,000. But obviously, we haven't reached 10,000 yet. So it's obviously not even half. Not even a. it's a partial koala at the moment, so less than one koala. So, but yeah, we got because obviously each property, it's obviously each property is treated in its own series. So people buy into a specific property token series. So the koala property, people buy into koala. That's where we're at with the koala, and then the dolphin. It's also got its own counter. So the dolphin token series, we're up to 3,265 koalas that have been sold out of the 33,000. So again, it's not even a full dolphin that we've sold so far. So that just gives people an update as to where we're at. Obviously, the sooner we sold out the series, so I present the dolphin, once we've sold 33,000, that means we can actually then sell on the property, and the journey starts in terms of renting that property out. Yeah. So it just gives people a bit of an update where it's at with it. Yeah.
Are you able to tell us which token is being used more to buy the koalas and dolphins? Is it USDC or Raven?
So far, with the koala property, it was all USDC. With the dolphin token, it's been a bit of a mix. Has been USDC and has been some Raven. Given that's on the RAVENCOIN blockchain, I thought that would actually be quite, obviously it's obvious because people there in the RAVENCOIN community will have RAVENCOIN, the native token. So. But again, I thought there actually would have been more of an uptake in terms of people using RAVENCOIN to buy the dolphin tokens. But again, like I said, we do provide education every week, and hopefully people, the penny starts to drop that you can actually use Raven to buy it. So, but yeah, look, it's at the moment, they're just a two. As I said earlier, our objective is to obviously introduce a few more merge facilities. So then basically people can use any crypto really, and basically converts back into USDC, because we need to hold in USDC as in terms of only because obviously when we talk about the total amount 2.6 that we need to obviously get to sell on the property, is making sure that we've always got that, because obviously we know that crypto market can fluctuate. So that's why we always need to bring it all back to USDC.
Mm-hmm.
To making sure we've got that money come time to sell on the property. Yeah.
Yeah. So right now it looks like it's about 3,000 Raven for dolphin.
Yeah. So $80. Yeah.
Yep. All right.
Yeah.
Let's see here. What was the next thing? Oh, do you have anything, Jake? Before I continue.
Well, I think you guys actually covered it pretty well. I was listening through and all that Lewis was explaining. One of the things that aggravated me the most in all the investment. In fact, John and I experienced it explicitly with the fall of Celsius, was the fact that you have to be an accredited investor if you want to do large scale investment. And I know why that is, at least in the U.S. I don't know if this is also true in Australia, but the main reason is, at least it seems, is that the government wants to protect the people from putting too much of their loose cash, assuming they actually have some loose cash, into large-scale investments. And in particular, it's like if you, let's say, a relatively small-scale investor, person who might have $10,000 in cash that they didn't need for anything, and they wanted to invest that into in something like one of your properties. In that sense, 10,000 isn't really going to go very far. I mean, 10,000 maybe 30 years ago, it might go somewhere, but now definitely not. And Is that 10,000 more worthwhile for that person to just buy an automobile? Not really a good investment, but it's more of a, is it practical, and would that person be in dire straits if they just sunk that 10,000 into an investment? An investment, you can't get the money out quickly. So like you and I are talking pre-show about the two programs that I told you about, which one was called Concrete, the other one's called Fundrise. These allow things to do pretty much what you're allowing people to do. And in those cases, they actually tell you up front, by the way, you cannot pull this money out quickly. You can pull it out if you request very nicely, and you can only ask once per year. You can ask us to pull a certain amount of money out of the investment that you've created. But really the idea here is you're putting this money in here, it's going to stay here for 5 years plus. It's not going to come out. And people who are worth $1 million plus probably don't need that. They don't need that million, or maybe $500,000 or something. I think in the US now it's $1 million. You have to be a net worth of $1 million, and it can't include your house, or you have to be making at least $300,000 a year. And in that case, can you afford losing $150,000? Yeah, you probably can't. Now, that's what it seems like the U.S. in general is worried about for small-time investors. It's like, well, what if a person says, I have $1,000 I know I don't need, and I could give that $1,000 up for 10 years, like put it in a CD or something, certificate of deposit. How would that be any different than doing it? It's a smaller amount of money, but let's say you had 1,000 people. At that point, it's 1,000 times 1,000, in which case a person could legitimately invest in a property. Now, all those people have to promise to leave that money in for a certain period of time minimum, or else possibly take a penalty. But the U.S. just doesn't make provisions for that. Now, with these newer systems, they are trying to get around it, like private equity. But that's what I think that is the advantage of what you're doing. You're pushing the boundaries. You're saying, this can't stand any longer. We need a different way of doing it. And I really appreciate that you're doing it. So thank you.
Thanks, Jack. And the thing is, it's one of those things. So look, as I said, it's a better, property. We know it's a long-term thing. Property that you're not going to get obviously fluctuations like you do in the stock market or crypto market. It's consistent over time, especially if you're in the right market. Like here, it's consistent. Like property here, it doubles every 10 years. That's consistent every 10 years. If you look over the last 50, 60 years, that's consistent. But obviously, there's a few things that are playing out here. It's going to be more than double over the next 10 years because obviously Olympics we've got here, we've got migration from down south. And so we've got a few other drivers that's causing a bit of more of an uplift in terms of our property values.
You said down south. How far down south? I thought you guys were the furthest down south.
No. That's Melbourne at the bottom. They're up the coast. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Brisbane is up the coast north of New Queensland. So, or no, it's in Queensland. It's New South Wales. I'm thinking of. Sorry, that's where Sydney is.
Correct. Yeah. So,
anyways,
we've got in terms of interstate migration, we've got a lot of Melbourne people and Sydney people coming up to Brisbane, Gold Coast. In terms of what they copped the COVID quite badly down there. A lot of people lost their businesses, and they, like for Melbourne, for example, they had a record number of days in the world for lockdown days. They had 282 lockdown days through that whole COVID period.
I remember that.
Yeah, we had 10 days. Like we had 10 days. I was having this discussion actually with Bruce Fenton on one of his when he was going for the Senate, and he goes, "I feel sorry for you, Lewis, in terms of I heard you've had record number of lockdowns." And I said, "Oh no, Bruce, actually we're totally different. That was Melbourne. In Brisbane, we had 10 days, so it was just totally different in terms of how we dealt with the whole thing. Look, not by objective, just by luck how things turn out here." But yeah, look, that's and then what that's done is basically typically historically Melbourne price compared to Brisbane price has always been sometimes double in terms of our property values. So we got a lot of people coming up here with Melbourne money, as we call it, that they buy a property here, and they've still got they could buy another one if they wanted to. And that's that sort of differential that it is between our property values,
balancing out of the areas around the country. One other point I wanted to kind of get into is when in talking with people to try to not necessarily convince them, but change their thinking about how investing works. Are you trying to encourage people not just looking at the long term, but looking at what what property investment means versus, and I'm being facetious here, investing in an automobile, or investing in coffee. There's obviously investing in stocks, which is a long time, somewhat understood concept for most people, but some people look at it as like, well, the stock value can go up or down. Yes, that's true. The value of a property can go up or down. But in general, over the long term, most property tends to go up. Now, in the United States, at least, we've had times when the market has crashed. In 2008 through 2010, the market definitely did crash, and people did lose value of their homes. But the thing that I would try to encourage people, and I didn't really understand this myself until I was in my 30s, was long-term investing means putting money away, kind of like a Roth IRA, or in the United States, or a what was the other kind of investment I'm thinking of? People do what is it called? Not IRAs. The investment that they do with the company. What's it called, John? I can never think of the name. It's not a Roth IRA. It's an IRA. It's not an IRA. I can't think of the word. Anyways, the point I'm trying to make is it's the way that the company will invest in you for your retirement, retirement account, or a 401k. 401k it's called here. So the 401k is the long-term investment where you're putting a little money out of every single paycheck away all the time. And you can do that, but you can also do that in real estate. And that's the thing that I wish more people would comprehend is, it's nice to take vacations, and it's great. I mean, Americans have a very different perspective on vacation than Australians probably do. But the idea of you can invest in experiences, but that won't necessarily help you in retirement. So investing in a piece of property will pay you back over time. It's like owning a home versus renting or leasing a home. Is every dollar you put into owning a home is money you're effectively paying yourself. And a lot of people don't look at that, particularly this generation, millennials and younger. They don't recognize the value because they just don't see it. But anyone from Gen X or older definitely knows the value of putting money into property. And you're going to grow it over time. You can actually see the investment beating inflation most of the time, not always. But and so the advantage in this is giving the smaller investor, in my opinion, for BrikBC, giving the smaller investor the opportunity to do real estate investing, honest, solid, appreciative investing in something that will give you potentially an immense return. And the fact that you're bridging the gap away from the banks into this new technology called crypto is, if they're not singing your praises 200 years from now, I don't know who would be more brilliant than this idea, in my opinion. So,
yeah, thanks. You hit it on the head, Jake. It's in terms of the younger generation, the younger people sort of, obviously when they look at some of what's happening in crypto and people making a lot of money in crypto, as we know. But again, we also see a lot of people lose a lot of money too. So I think you need to have a sort of a diverse way of thinking in terms of, property is not going to give you your 10x's, your 20x's, and 40x's in the short term, but it will give you consistent of growth over time. And again, it's about accumulating. It's not like, if I'm sort of guiding people, young people, and we're not saying go and sort of put all your earnings or all into tokenized real estate. All we're saying, consistently grow over time. And again, this is not financial advice in any way,
no.
shape or form. There's just the fundamentals. There's just the fundamentals in terms of, if you look outlook, obviously do your research, but in terms of when we talk about the fundamentals of real estate property, it especially now in a tokenized way, is about to accumulate little bits at a time. Whether that's a weekly basis, monthly basis, depending what you earn. It is about putting a little bit aside every week, every month, that you can just accumulate your portfolio investment. So people in the past, even now, obviously traditional real estate, is just so far, they can't, because you've got to buy a whole property or not. And the average person can't buy a whole property.
Exactly.
But you can now buy fractions of a property, which expose you to the real estate investment, all the benefits that come from it in a small way. You're chipping away, That I think this is where it provides a massive opportunity for people to get away. And look, because these are tokens, obviously there'll be a secondary market. So once you buy in the koala property, the dolphin property, there's a secondary market within our platform. So for some reason, in 5 years' time, you need to pull some money out. Obviously, with the property value going up, so as the token value goes up. So you got the ability that if you did want to actually cash in some of, half of it or 10% of it, depending what the situation is, you've always got that ability to actually sell some of it on the secondary market.
Yep.
And that's the beauty. Again, comes back to when you own a property, if you got a property, you can only sell all or not.
Yes.
And sometimes when you need the money and trying to sell all, sometimes you might have to actually sell at a lesser price because obviously there's not as many buyers in that particular scenario. That if things are the right conditions.
Making the property more piecemeal in this way.
Correct. So again, it's and I'm big in terms of Jake. Just come back to the point you were making, Jake, in terms of education. I'm a big believer that's again. This is what obviously the sessions I do every week. Hopefully, people pick up sort of some gold nuggets in terms of just basically, whether it's traditional or tokenized real estate, doesn't matter. Just real estate in general, people can pick up some points around the fundamentals of real estate. Yeah.
Here's my question: a lot of companies, as you know, as we all know, went bankrupt last year. How does I guess you can't really guarantee that you guys won't go bankrupt, but what's your solid foundation when it comes to BrikBC? Like, I want to feel that if I'm investing into this company, that it's not going to rug next week.
Yeah. So I guess in terms, like compared to some of the other projects, like FTXs of this world, some of the crypto exchanges with Celsius, and we know quite a few, especially over the last 18 months in terms of what happened there. I guess we're not a crypto exchange. So for us, obviously each property is on its own merit, and basically these properties in their own right, they've got the value behind. So the Dolphin token, for example, there's actually real value behind that each Dolphin token, a property. There's actually a property that exists, and it consistently goes up over time, property. So again, it's not a crypto, although it's on the blockchain, but it has no relevance to crypto. It's an actual hard property that sits behind that property token series. In terms of us, from a BrikBC projects company, obviously tokenizing these properties, and each property token series obviously got its own merit in terms of property behind it. But in terms of us, again, this is all our own money that my co-founder and I, this is all our own money that we started this company. And again, it's a very lean machine. Obviously, as we grow, it'll have its own needs. But again, obviously, given my CPA accounting background and always about knowing the numbers, where the numbers sit, and what the forecasting is, making sure that the numbers are always there, and we don't borrow any money. So again, this is all our own hard money that's put into it. So I guess in terms of risk of actually us falling over, it's next to nothing because.
Okay, thank you. So in regards to the tokens, are we earning interest or dividends on those tokens, or it's just the tokens that we're getting, and those tokens go up in value over time?
Yeah. So, for example, using the Dolphin token series as an example of the model. So once the property settled, then obviously the journey begins in terms of earning rent from the tenants, the tenant that's in there. Okay. So the tenant will pay the rent, expenses gets paid out of it. The net rent each month actually gets invested into a crypto portfolio within that token series, because obviously that the Brick Dolphin is owned by a company that's and then that crypto portfolio that's going to be accumulating in there is going to be owned by the Brick Dolphin company. It's actually the actual company is actually called Brick Dolphin. The company that owns the Brick Dolphin series. So it'll be in there. So basically, you're going to have obviously the main asset being the property, and also a secondary asset being the crypto portfolio that's accumulating each month with the net rent. So basically, the Dolphin token derives its value from the real estate, and also that accumulating crypto portfolio in there. And no, we're not buying and we're not trying to time the market. Is that we're just going to focus on the main cryptos each month, and then basically just accumulate. It's not about trading; it's about just accumulating. Obviously, RAVENCOIN will be in there, be your Bitcoin, your Ethereum. So your main blue chip cryptos. To keep it very simple, but it's about the accumulate. Again, this is a held indefinitely in terms of the property, and so will the crypto in there will also be held indefinitely.
I'm going to safely assume, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the money that's being deposited, or
Mhm.
what you guys are getting for what crypto you guys are getting for the tokens, you guys are
Mhm.
using those cryptos to buy more property, yeah,
No,
or
no,
upgrading
no.
property.
No, so basically, the funds that are going to be raised initially in terms of selling the let's say the Dolphin token, the 33,000, so 2.6 mil, that'll be towards purchasing that property, all the transaction costs that's involved in purchasing that property. Once we've bought the property, then the journey starts in terms of renting the property out, and then that's why every month all the net rent that we generate from after expenses gets invested into the crypto portfolio each month.
Right. So it's
So it's
safe. Yeah, you're not
yes,
reinvesting in other projects and with the potential for
no,
loss. You're keeping it
Yeah,
no,
safe by keeping it all in one property.
yeah,
keeping that.
the reason I
Yeah,
asked that, because I'm
yeah,
looking at your roadmap and you have a lot of
yeah.
other I
Mm.
guess bricks. You got the brick emu, brick
There's
wombat,
more
brick
coming up.
dingo. What was that?
There's more coming up.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
our, yeah.
So you're not taking loans or using your personal money,
Mm.
and you're not using the money the crypto portfolio. There's going to be a point in time where you're not going to be able to buy all these properties because these are $1 million homes. So
Well, the
I'm
thing
trying
is,
to figure out how you're
yeah.
getting all this money, unless you're a multi-billionaire. I don't know.
Well, as I said, each property is in its own merit. So each property, that will roughly be between 2.6, $3.5 million purchase price per each property. So you have a look at the koala property, that's a standalone. So then obviously we've got the dolphin, that's a standalone. The next one's going to be the brick room. So once we've sold the koala token series and actually settle on the property, then we move to the next one, the Brisbane property, which should be around the same area of Hamilton, which is going to be called the brick room. So each property will have its own sale of its own tokens. So there'll be the brick room, which will have also 33,000 tokens to be sold, and obviously that will be 2.6 mil roughly, depending on how we negotiate the price on that one to buy that property. But yeah, so each property it's standalone, its own right.
Okay.
Yeah. So
So
obviously the crypto portfolio is accumulated for the Dolphin. It'll be its own funds in there in terms of its own crypto, and it'll be quarantined within that special purpose vehicle that owns the Dolphin token series. Yeah.
So here you have two locations that I'm looking at all your bricks. You
Mhm.
have Gold Coast and you have Brisbane. Are you expanding anywhere else, or will this be updated to expand to other cities as well, or are you only going to focus on these two locations?
Yeah, we're focusing in our state of Queensland. Um, Next year, everything going to plan. Next year, we're actually introducing Sunshine Coast. So Brisbane's in the centre, and you've got the Gold Coast, which is 80 kilometres south of Brisbane, and then we've got the Sunshine Coast, where Cerberus is, 80 kilometres north of Brisbane. So we're just basically focusing around that roughly that 200 kilometre radius, but it's on the coast. It's all on the coast. We love our coast here. We don't, there's not much happens in the center of Australia. Everybody lives on the coast.
Is that going to be Brick Roo?
Brick will be in Brisbane. No, Brick will be in Brisbane. So the
Okay.
timeline we've actually got they're all Brisbane and Gold Coast properties. The first 11 there we got on the timeline. Um, we like to think that next year we'll actually introduce the Sunshine Coast one. So our objective is basically that the first these first 11 ones, and then the second year our intention is to do 20 properties per year thereafter. So just to keep to that sort of numbers between Brisbane, Gold Coast, and Sunshine Coast come second year.
Okay.
Yeah, obviously they'll be subject to demand in terms of obviously, obviously how we work through these will be subject to people actually buying and selling out the token series. Yeah.
Would you consider, or would BrikBC consider partnering
Mhm.
up with other companies and establishing Brick in other countries?
We've actually had approaches actually only just last week
Yeah.
about America, about America actually.
That's why I brought that up, because I was listening to that. Yeah.
And the answer was no. Look, we want to focus here in Queensland.
Okay.
It's the thing is, John. Look, I've built a lot of relationships in terms of our Brisbane, Gold Coast, and Sunshine Coast over the last 30 years. And when you start talking about town planners, you start talking about architects, builders, and developers. And again, this is where my network is. So it is a massive point of difference for our token holders to have my network where I know who to go to, and obviously things can be done more efficiently. And sometimes, given obviously relationships, sometimes that I don't have to pay fees to certain advisors here when it comes to whether it be town planners and so forth, and because of the relationships I built. So I see that as a massive point of difference. And also, even going to another state, you've got different laws in terms when it comes to state laws. It does vary a little bit as well when it comes to some of the state taxes. So although the fundamentals are similar, they're just different rates, how they charge, and so for me, it's about keeping things very simple and keeping focused. And again, you can't be everything to everybody. And I see that there's enough opportunities here in the three areas that we're focusing on to last us a long time. And obviously, as you know, there's the 2032 Olympics here.
Looking forward to that.
And we haven't even there's nothing really that's even impacting the property values at this stage, because that sort of kicks in sort of 3 years out typically. And we experienced that in Sydney in 2000 Sydney Olympics, where 3 years before the Olympics things went into turbocharge as far as property values are concerned.
Indeed.
So we haven't even seen any of that yet.
That's what I was wondering about. Because in 32, which is what, about 11 years off. I said that right. I have it backward. 9 years off. Pardon me.
It's coming around.
I flipped it around. And anyways, what I was thinking about was absolutely the property prices, and particularly wherever they decide to place the stadiums and the events is going to just skyrocket in price. And what's thinking is, and I'm not saying it's not going to, but presuming that all your properties fill up over the next 5 years, let's say, perspective of positive return here, and expecting that all these properties do, would you consider doing commercial real estate as well, not just these homes?
Yeah, look, I think they're different. That in terms of the skill base and it's a different model when it comes to commercial. Although I've been obviously with people who've been in terms of advising and mentoring some guys that have been as property developers in the commercial space, I understand it. But residential, I know back to front. I know the fundamentals. I know, you just because obviously been around long enough. A lot of that is actually second nature, and it's focusing where your strengths are. And my strengths and Melinda's strengths is always been in residential. And again, look, there probably is going to be some. I hope there is, in terms of that somebody will do commercial here, in tokenizing real estate from a commercial perspective. Because again, massive opportunity as well.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking. Thinking maybe you could just join as a partner with another group that was doing the same thing.
Yeah,
so.
Maybe I could just give some guidance to them and tell them who to speak to.
Right.
And
Right. Yeah.
provide the framework, and they can sort of do it. Because again, it's like some of those things. I want to make sure that we're very clear what we do here. And like when we got talking about there was somebody in the US in terms of whether we'd be interested. And I said, look, now I need to be very focused here, what's happening here, so there's no mixed message in terms of who we are, as far as the BrikBC is concerned, location, type of property, and so forth. So it's very clear what we do and what we're about. Yeah,
indeed.
Yeah, there was something on your website that became a question mark hovering over my head. Here was a thought. It's very obvious. All your brick projects are all 100% residential, and you guys are mentioning commercial. There is no commercial here on your website. Why aren't you going with commercial? And
right,
exactly. Why aren't you going with commercial or apartment complexes?
Well,
or
as you said,
other assets?
John, it's just not his wheelhouse.
Yeah.
So it's not.
It's again, like I said, we've always been in residential, and that all comes second nature. The fundamentals back to front. Commercials, obviously, there's a different elements to it that it is different to residential, and I hope somebody will tokenize commercial, as I said before, because I can see there's a lot of opportunities there in commercial in terms of, but it's a different kettle of fish when you start talking about gross returns, and also in terms of capital growth. They are very different, the two.
Yeah. So I understand. It's just not something you're wanting to pursue in the anytime future. So.
No, as I say, if you focus on your strengths,
exactly.
and you become very clear in terms of who you are,
right?
And you can't confuse people.
Yeah, we have Brent in the chat that says that BrikBC does make sense. coastal city growth is being rocket fueled by the Zoom boom.
Yep.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. We've had a lot of. I mean, these just to give you sort of geographical sort of overview. So where the koala token series is, so it's a suburb, prestigious suburb called Hamilton. So at the very west part of Hamilton, which is quite a big estate, we've got obviously a lot of prestige properties, like obviously the koala property, which I actually showed Tron Black around in terms of so you can actually see some of the typical properties that are actually in the area. But then at the very east part of Hamilton is where the Olympic Village for the athletes' village is going to be, and they've started doing some of the civil works there as well. So and again, I actually showed Tron. I said you're actually witnessing in its very raw form. So if you do come out here 2032, you can actually say you saw it in its raw form when they started building the athletes' village for the Olympics.
Mm-hmm.
So again, just it's quite a big estate, but obviously what that does is that actually as things get closer, some of the executives for the sponsors for the companies involved in the Olympics, they will be living here for at a certain period of time, and they will want actually to rent these properties here to actually live while might be a 3 year stint, might be a 5 year stint, might be a 10 year stint. Some of them, but typically they'll actually rent the properties as opposed to buying it because most of the time the companies will pay for their accommodation.
Exactly.
And again, these companies are already taken up by. There's quite a lot of high level numbers of renters in the area, and they're typically executives of public listed companies, large private companies that live in the area. And they typically do rent them. They don't actually buy them, unless they're obviously staying here indefinitely. They'll obviously buy it, but typically, so they are rented by executives that live in the area. Yeah, and that's going to be obviously more as the Olympics is closer in terms of relocation, some to be closer to the action. Yeah.
Let's circle back to our main questions here. So,
Mhm.
in regards to BrikBC, right now it's you and your wife. Is there any other career opportunities with BrikBC? Somebody that's interested in that, what can they do? What do you
Yeah,
have
look,
for
in
that?
terms of at the moment, obviously, we've got our team. Obviously, on the IT, we've got DigiShares on the app, which was external to us. And but as we get through these property token series that we obviously got on board, we are going to need obviously more resources around the marketing side of things in terms of helping. Because at the moment, obviously, I'm playing a big role in education, educating what tokenized real estate is all about and what is BrikBC all about. So we will need as we move forward, there will be opportunities in the marketing space in terms of engagement with the community, content creation, social media management in terms of the platforms.
Yep.
So we see bringing those resources, and those people can come from anywhere in the world. And doesn't know again with technology these days, and given obviously how we do things, it can come from anywhere in the world. And secondly, in terms of distribution, in terms of relationships around the world, in terms of how we actually get these in front of people, in terms of from the distribution perspective, so building the relationships around the world that can help us with the distribution side. So that's sort of the two areas that we see as critical, where we provide career opportunities at BrikBC as we move forward. Yeah.
Right. So this is obviously a unique thing, real estate on blockchain. So the next question is, what would you give, or what advice would you give someone that's interested in a career that's similar to yours, what you're doing now?
Look, I think I'm a big believer in terms of mentors. I think anybody that's trying to do something what we're doing here and what I'm doing personally is find good mentors, because good mentors can actually fast track your career in terms of what you're trying to achieve.
Okay.
Learning from those people that have done it before, and given obviously blockchain, we're all very early and start talking about tokenized real estate being very early, is find those mentors that can give you that clear pathway, what's ahead, and so the more you find those great mentors, the quicker it'll sort of fast track your journey to start doing in terms of tokenizing real estate and building your own platform.
That is great
Mm,
advice. Thank you.
mm,
Thank you.
mm,
Mentors, listen, all right?
mm,
Listen, mentors.
mm.
Everybody needs a mentor. Beautiful.
Absolutely,
All
absolutely.
right. what is okay? So obviously you have a lot of experience in life and a lot in real estate and even in crypto. You're starting to learn a lot more in crypto. But obviously you didn't know all this years ago. So if you would have to go, back in time, what's one thing you wish you had known when you first began your whole career in with
Mm.
BrikBC and in real estate as a CPA accountant?
Yeah, look, in terms of learning the fundamentals is always critical. So I think you need to go back and learn the fundamentals. Again, if I sort of go back in the beginning, it's if I had those mentors and to be able to fast track in learning the learning about the fundamentals of real estate property, it certainly would have helped. Fundamentals of running a business. Because the thing is, there's over the years I've come across some great technicians. Where it doesn't matter what business, whether they're builders, whether they're trades, whether they're property developers. There's a lot of great technicians, but what they lack is the business side of the brain, as I call it. And so, running a business is a skill base, and unfortunately. Just because you're making it, you might be a great technician, doesn't mean you're actually a great businessman. So the people that actually realise they haven't got that, they seek out mentors, they seek out advisors to be able to help them with the business side of things. So again, it's I think if you sort of go and seek those mentors in those different spaces, and if I had done that, I certainly would have been further much quicker, and obviously not make mistakes. So we'll make mistakes along the journey, but the less mistakes you make, the less costly it is, and obviously fast tracks in terms of your journey. So basically, as I said, learning the business, how to run the business, the fundamentals of running the business is critical. And again, like I said, coming back to those mentors, seek those mentors that can help you and expose you to that, and also blockchain in terms of learning learning what blockchain is all about. Because again, it's we all know how much it can actually it is changed society right now. But you fast track back that in 10 years' time, you look back and we realise how much society has changed. Just like we look back at the internet back in '92 and at the early beginnings and where we are now, how much it's changed society. But I think blockchain will be much, much faster. And I think in 10 years' time, we'll look back and realize, wow, that's amazing. And some things we don't even know now. Just like we didn't know back in '92 what that looked like. All we knew was going to be good for society, but we didn't even think about some things we've got now. And I think it'll be the same case with blockchain. Yeah.
That's great. All right. So as we get ready to wrap up this episode, I do have a couple more questions here. So, um, obviously, I didn't ask you all of the questions. So this is my time. I'm going to ask you if you were the host of this podcast, what's
Mhm.
one question you would ask yourself that I have not asked you that you feel is very important?
Yeah, look, in terms of you're probably thinking, I guess you're probably thinking, you and Jake are probably thinking about in terms of, given obviously my history and in terms of being a CPA accountant in Australia, look, mentoring businesses and obviously being in real estate, you're probably thinking, why would you start something that governments are very around the world, most governments around the world, I think there's only very few that actually are negative towards blockchain, anything blockchain. Um, and really, it's a very, very small percentage of people actually know about blockchain and related projects. So I guess if I was to ask myself a question that you haven't asked, I said, why would you do this? Given that you seem pretty happy with what you've achieved so far,
Yeah.
in terms in those two spaces, why would you do, given the circumstances around it? But look, my answer to that would be that look, I've always been an early adopter of technology. Now, if I can sort of go back to like '93 when I was a young accountant, just came that basically started my journey in terms as a student, and I was working part time in an accounting practice. I actually introduced my accounting software, which was obviously a server-driven software, which basically before there was no such thing for any small, medium-sized business. They didn't. The big companies obviously had their own ACPAC software, but obviously it was very costly. But for the average small to medium-sized business, they couldn't afford to have their accounting system, and an actual accounting system to actually record income and expenses, all done on a manual cash book, where basically took the cash book, coded it up, and actually used a very clunky system, accounting system, to be able to generate your trial balance, profit and loss, and balance sheet. So I was actually the first one to introduce that to the practice as a young student accountant. So again, because I love technology and I knew that would change a lot of businesses to be able to find it, basically work out for themselves where they sit at any given time in terms of what's happening, profit and loss, and position around their business. Again, back in 2008, again, where a lot of accounting systems, a lot of businesses were using the accounting system, because MYOB did actually make the change, the thing here in Australia. But a lot of businesses had those in a service, either a local server or a drive, a server for the whole firm, or the local drive or the computer where they held the accounting system, the MYOB accounting system. So it was very clunky, because basically you had to take the file to your accountant, and then your accountant done what he needed to do, and then basically you then had to actually go back to your system, make the changes to align those. And in 2008 came cloud accounting software that came out to Australia from New Zealand called Xero. Basically, we were the first to adopt, in terms of our accounting firm, we were the first to adopt Xero accounting software, which again was very very unique, because it's the file obviously sat on the server. It was very much, doesn't matter where you're at, you can use your iPad, you can use your so there was just that basically access to your accounting software from anywhere, anytime sort of approach. So that was after meeting the two founders that came out from New Zealand to expand into the Australian market, and finding out. And I said they'll change, they'll revolutionise all small to medium-sized business here. In terms of, you've got all your advisors that basically got one central point to access data in a live manner. So that was back in 2008. And I guess we go 2022, when we first tokenized the real estate property. Again, we saw the clunkiness of when you start talking about real estate, as I said before. And again, I personally saw the way that tokenized real estate could really change how people can access real estate. So that's I gave you a long story, only because to articulate that I've always been an early adopter technology, and I've always been a big believer that, always trying to find technology solutions to assist business systems and processes to make things better in terms of what they're doing. And that's now the same thing in terms of and also in terms of helping people's lives. And again, we see traditional real estate, the clunkiness of it, and now tokenized real estate to really change people's lives. In terms, so again, obviously I'm fortunate I've got all the skills to be able to work out the model and be able to see a solution to a problem using tokenized real estate. And again, here we are. So, but look for me, John and Jake, for me, whether BrikBC succeeds or not, it makes no changes to me financially, to my wife and I. But I know what we're doing will actually change a lot of people's lives around the world. So that's sort of the closing on that. I know it's sort of a long-winded answer to your question, but
that's great. That's
yeah.
great.
Mm.
My brother from another crypto mother, Luis, thank you for being on the podcast. So, with
Pleasure,
that
John.
said, I want to ask, where can our listeners and viewers reach you, contact you, just want to chat with you, and know more about BrikBC?
Yeah, look, we run. I host the weekly shows on Twitter Spaces. The Brick Q&A, which is very specifically around us in terms of what we're doing, tokenizing real estate. It allows people to get the latest information, what we're doing, what's happening, and obviously provide a bit of education at the same time. So that's every week. On the you're going to put me on the spot there. It's every Wednesday US. And that time zones, I'll put. I've got them on Twitter Space, so you'll find me on Twitter Space all the times. So it's the same time, same place that we do. Also do on Thursdays US time. Also do what is real estate tokenization. That's more generic, where it's about providing generic education. Where I have speakers come on who are at the cold front, whether it's cold front or blockchain. But obviously, I try to sort of stick it to tokenized real estate to continue to provide that education. people from different chains in terms of what they're doing on with real estate and so forth. So, and look, in terms of our website, obviously there's a great content there in terms of what we do, how we do it. But Twitter Space is one of our major engagements with the community, where we keep everybody updated and share some funny things and share my brick walks that I like to share around in terms of
Yeah, I love
showing.
those little video clips. I love them, man. They're great.
Well, that's great, John. Did you like it? It's, okay, we try to sort of, obviously the Gold Coast and Brisbane trying to sort of showcase in those brick walks what it's all about. But yeah, look, there's the different touch points on our Twitter space there. Our Twitter on the profile. There's the brick tree, which has got links to all our platforms. In terms, we do have YouTube, Spotify. We do all the recordings always put on Spotify and Anchor. We use YouTube in terms of the brick Q&A. We do put up the video of each week on there as well, the video version of it. So Discord, Instagram, TikTok, Reddit. So, but the brick tree gives you sort of all those points on our profile there on Twitter. In terms of all those points to different platforms. Yeah.
Great. I'm looking at it right now. Yeah, brickprojects.com /bricktree. Great. Well, Luis, thank you. I got to thank you personally. Thank you for being on the podcast. It's been in the makings for a while, so I appreciate you being on the podcast. All right.
Thank you.
Until next time, I want to see some progress updates. We'll get you on the podcast again soon.
Be great.
With that said, Jake, you want to roll us out?
Yes, thank you all for listening and watching. As we all have it from our coin tree, you can check that out. We have places you can donate and places you can check us out both for social media and for future episodes and our schedule, as we will have many, many more interviews coming up in the near future every single Thursday at 7 p.m. Pacific in the U.S. As we say at the end
of every show. Thank you, John.
Yes, thank you very much for being on the show. We appreciate you very much, Lewis. As we say at the end of every single show, stack sats and hodl. Adios.